Islam, 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 and welcome to Moor MHHS-Eyes Wide Open. This is your host, Anita L., along with my co-hosts, who I know are in here, but probably forgot to press 1. Hold on a minute. Let's see. Hold on. Here we go. We have Ms. Raheem Alice L.
Islam, peace and love. Honor E, pardon me on that. Indeed, I'm here. Peace and love to Moors worldwide. Islam.
Peace and love. And we have Rosemary Bay.
Islam, peace and love to all.
All right, all right. And I don't believe that we are going to have Cujo joining us tonight, although he's more than likely listening. He has some other things that he needs to take care of with the family. But he is listening, and I'm sure if he's inspired to comment, he will. To internet listeners, I just want to let you know the chat room, it is open. I want to send a big shout out to our family near the various corporations around the world. Great Britain, Islam. Family near the Japan Corporation, Islam. Family near the South Africa Corporation, Islam to you. Family near the Philippine Corporation, Islam. Family near the Netherlands Corporation, and a big shout out to Brother Albacet, Islam, peace and love. Shout out to our family listening near the Mexico Corporation, the Venezuela Corporation, and the Cuba Corporation, and to family around the world that we have yet to connect with. Peace and love to you. Thank you for joining us via the internet. To our family who calls in, big shout out to you for calling in every week, filling up the phone lines before the show even begins. Peace and love to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. Before we start our broadcast, we're going to make what we call a public announcement. Public announcement is of Moors who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage for a demand of income by various corporations that we have been mentally conditioned to believe are some type of government, when in actuality they're private foreign corporations having nothing to do with government. And these corporations are disguised in names like the county, city, town, township, borough. Now, if you've been listening to previous shows, we did an analysis of these words, and they literally, in their definition in the Black's Law 4th Edition Dictionary, they literally speak of a corporation. All right? They're not government. They are a corporation. So these various different corporations are, in fact, kidnapping the people off the street, holding them hostage. Many of us believe it is the state. Some of us even think it is the federal government, when both of these entities are bound by the American Constitution to protect all the people. Not them, but we've been miseducated by these very entities, and so we think they're government when in actuality, like I said, their corporation. So we have our sister, Abkarebe, who was kidnapped through a joint venture between Shelby Corporation and Memphis. Dawood Ill via under the purview of Arkansas, Amir Mosley Ill, Kusu Ra Kush Bay, under the purview of Missouri, Asar Patan Amin Ra Bay, under the purview of Ohio, Jeremy Taylor Ill, Cherrythorn Bay, J. Michael Brooks Bay, Joseph Kanaday Ill, Kushamir Bunch Ill, Emmanuel Billings Bay, Yassin Khalik Alamin Ill, and Michael Curry Bay, all kidnapped under the purview of North Carolina. Now, we say under the purview of these union states if we don't have the name of the municipal corporation that actually kidnapped them. And we have Noble Crisco Ill under the purview of New Jersey. We have Messiah, Afiz Ill, and Crystal Ill, both kidnapped through a joint venture between Mercer, Freehold, and Trenton Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. We're still waiting on an update regarding Patricia Bay's infant baby kidnapped by Atlantic Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. Eldridge Teron Fisher Ill and Marquise Sevion Ill, both under the purview of Indiana. Solomon Ilbay and Mumi Abu Bay, both under the purview of Texas. William Barrett Ill under the purview of Virginia. Bomani Abidwell Ill, kidnapped by the Chesapeake Corporation under the purview of Virginia. Shay Bay under the purview of West Virginia. Thomas Lee Bay under the purview of California. And Victor Eduardo Ovalle Juarez Ill, kidnapped by Holland Corporation under the purview of Georgia. Those are Moors that have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. If you have a family member or someone that you know that has been kidnapped and you would like them added to this list, send an email to MHHS-Eyes-Wide-Open@gmail.com and make sure you include the county, because it's always a county, city, town, township, borough, corporation. These are all municipal corporations. Their bottom line is they're corporations who are doing this. So you need to indicate the municipal corporation that kidnapped them and the union state that that corporation is obligated to and bound to protect the people. So include that. Send it to MHHS-Eyes-Wide-Open@gmail.com, and we will add them to this list. All right, and I think that's it. Let's see. Yeah, I believe that's it. All righty. Just want to, before we get into the subject of our broadcast tonight, I just want to let everyone know that's listening that we will be at the we'll be at the National Theater, where we will be doing part 2 of the Final Call series. And in this broadcast tonight, as well as next Tuesday, the subject matter will also be a Final Call series, because we're at a time really where, the people have been told who they are, really. It is past time that the people definitely start taking responsibility for the running of their government. People think that government is separate from them when government simply is family. And so what has to happen is that the people need to start acting like family. That's why we have this uniting of Asia, because we're uniting the Asiatic family, as one once again so that we could operate as one united family, which is government. All right? Now, as long as we have Moors across this nation believing that they are, establishing some newly formed government or nation, that still constitutes division. We've got many different branches of the family, but the bottom line is it still comes from off of the one tree, and we need to recognize that. And as long as we are not united as one, we're going to have a really hard time overcoming this other family that has imposed the violation of these many corporations on us. So we have to wake up. And so we are having this final call series because that's what it is. It's the final call. And at the head of this final call is the issue of nationality. Everybody, Asiatics, unconscious Moors, conscious Moors, and those other citizens, modern Europeans. I'm not excluding anyone because, when we go back to the history of this continent, this was always a haven for everybody to come here and live in peace. We never excluded anyone. And guess what? We don't exclude anyone today. But we as a people, we have to unite. We have two nations on this continent. We have the Moorish nation, and then you have the modern Europeans under the United States of America nation, newly established, sanctioned, funded by the Moors. That is a matter of public record. All right? So we have two nations on this land, on this continent. The prophet said that I come to teach you to love instead of hate. The first love you have got to have is for yourself and then for your immediate family. That would be your Moorish family on this continent. And then we have to also honor and recognize the modern Europeans. This is not about excluding. This is simply about recognizing who we are. And recognizing who we are, that is not something that only unconscious Moors have to do. That's something that modern Europeans have to do as well. We've all been intentionally misinformed and miseducated, all of us. All right? So this is the final call for all of us. Wake up, you sleepy-headed Moors and other citizens. This land is for the people. This is why the American Constitution, 1791, was written down. There's this big thing going on between a lot of modern Europeans, and I'm going to say this because I feel the pain of the modern Europeans because it's a similar pain, not to the same extent, but it's a similar pain that we Moors have. Nobody knows who they are. And because you don't know who you are, you think that you don't have protection when you do. You think that when you hear words like international law, that excludes you from the protection. But on this continent, the fact that you have two nations interacting, that means that international law is in order because of that. If there was only one nation, the Moors, on this land, as it used to be, there would be no international law because there would be one nation and that would be it. But on this continent, it is most unique because this is the only continent around the world where you have two nations, and those two nations are supposed to coexist harmoniously and peaceful, and I believe initially it did, but you had other people interjecting that caused some friction. We're going to have to recognize that and not hold grudges about it, but we're going to have to mend it. And we're going to have to bring the peace and harmony back to this land, and we're going to have to recognize family. Look, the prophet said that you have to worship under your own vine and fig tree, and that means that if you're a modern European, much as we love you and we assisted you in forming your nation, you got to worship under your nation. And if you're a Moor, conscious or unconscious, you got to worship under your own nation too. You cannot go thinking that you are a member of the United States of America, because that nation was formed and established for the modern Europeans. Just like the modern Europeans can't think that they can be a part of the Moorish nation, because that nation is for the Asiatic people, this land, Aboriginal indigenous. Nothing wrong with standing under your own vine and fig tree. You just got to recognize which one of the trees is yours and stand under it, right? So it's past the time for the people to go back to the constitutional fold, where we will find the peace and protection from all corporations, even those guys as government. Now, this awareness, it became so impacting to me, and it was like it became so obvious. It's so funny because we decided to do this final call series, and this particular series is addressing the family versus the family unit and the safety of the family unit. Operation known as Child and Family Services, I should say Child and Family Services, right? Because this corporation does nothing except tear families apart. So it's a disservice to the family. It's not a service to the family. It's a disservice to the family.
Mm-hmm.
What we as people got to recognize is this is the final call. Together, we were talking about it, and we put it together. We put the flyer together. We did the first presentation last Wednesday. We're going to do the second tomorrow. Between that time and now, it was like the universe just unveiled a lot to me, and I got so much clarity. And I realized that we as a people, and I'm praying, I know that a lot of modern Europeans who think they're American, I know they listen to this call, and I am so praying that many of them listen, and I'm hoping that even after this broadcast, they listen, as well as more conscious and unconscious listen. Do a little bit more listening than talking, because this is the final call. We as a people, we live quiet lives of desperation. We literally believe that we have absolutely no power when power is all around us. We give our power up to fiction, not even anything in the flesh. We give our power away to fiction's inanimate objects. And we do this because we feel as a people we have no power. We have an enormous amount of power. We just have to learn to stop allowing other people to manipulate it. We have Moors, conscious, who are publicly divided against the family. We have Moors who are unconscious, who is publicly divided against the family. Those individuals, those Moors, they have to recognize that they are being led and programmed to behave in that manner. Because if you did the opposite, we would unite and be strong as one family. Just as we have modern Europeans. Modern Europeans, I call you modern Europeans because your origins, really, they are from this land in Yucatan, but you're the ones that came over here on the ships. You celebrated, and you got it coming up the 4th of July. You came over on the ship here from Great Britain. You were not originally here. You could never be American. But we as a nation, we allowed you to come here and live in peace away from the oppression of the brutish Moors. And that's not going to change. But you are not American. You are modern European. And you have to find your family and unite with them. But as long as you stay divided from the family, these corporations will use that lack of information to have you fight with the Aboriginal indigenous people here, and in that manner keep us all divided because we're so busy fighting all of these invisible things that really don't even exist, that we never unite as one people who are just sick and tired of being afraid all the time. And I'm talking to you sons too, because don't tell me you don't have that fear of something. You go outside and you don't know if some employee of a corporation is going to attack you at any minute. We as a people on this continent, whether you are of the Moorish nation or the United States of America nation, we are so tired of being afraid all the time. We're so tired of living quiet lives of desperation where the basic necessities of life are denied us by fiction that control and run our lives and tell us what we can and cannot do and how we can and cannot live. We as a people, regardless of our nation affiliation, we must stop this division and we must unite. And we must utilize that American Constitution to put every single corporation back in that Pandora's box and shut and nail the lid down. Because if we don't, they will continue to do what they're doing and greater. We have to unite. We have to, everybody, I don't care what your personal feelings are. You got to stop fighting with each other. I don't care what your skin complexion is, and you've got to study that American Constitution, and we have got to unite and enforce it. And that's all there is, because this is the final call. Islam?
Islam, you know, I just wanted to bring a clarity to what you were saying about the corporations, and I'm going to read this again, making it clearer in terms of the importance of domicile versus resident in terms of, because in the presentation last week, I think I visually broke down, the differences of being in a national domicile, which is considered as being within the territory of a nation and not with reference to a particular locality or subdivision of a nation, which is what those other veils are, those corporate states, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, all that. They are all corporations, so they are the subdivisions of a nation, and therefore any state as such is, of course, a quasi-national domicile. Because, see, in a way you're saying, like, the Constitution is really, in my opinion, from what I understand and what I know that I understand, is the peace document that everybody's really looking for. It already really exists if it were to be enforced, as you said, by all who were here, not just because it's the law of the land. And so a state really isn't a national domicile. It's a quasi-national domicile, because a national domicile is the ancestral estate that can't be broken down by subdivisions. That's a national domicile. That would be the whole continent, as an example. So therefore, the subdivisions would be what has been, as it has been subdivided. Although, again, the thing that we get afraid of or don't know or don't use properly is what a state is. Anytime you hear a state, you think of these corporate states, but you have to qualify that with the union states, which are corporations, no diggity, no doubt. So, but that doesn't mean that a state is a bad thing, because it's a group of people occupying a fixed territory. So on the what? On the ancestral estate. Doesn't mean that they're corporations pretending to be your family, because they're not your family. That's why it says one nation under God, indivisible. So when you were saying that their corporation, it has already been established as such, and I'm going to read that because we've read it before, but then there's some extensions, added to it, because all of these case laws come from somebody who challenged some violation of their liberties at some point, and from that, the case law was established, So there's always more than just the one case law usually that comes out, or there's always an explanation that expands. If you read the whole case, really, you would understand what out of it is a standing decision or stare decisis based on staring at, looking at the law as the law of the land, and whether it was violated. So inasmuch as every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can interface only with other artificial persons. The imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestation of this is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate stuff, artificial persons, and the contracts between them. And then in that B, that's A, B, the contracts between them involve U.S. citizens, which are deemed as corporate entities. C, therefore, the U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union are classified for the enfranchises of the federal government as an individual entity. So now you got a few things going on here, making being involved as a U.S. citizen, which you cannot be, and residing in one of the states. How can you be a national on a national domicile and say that you domicile in a quasi-national state? It can't happen. You can't claim both. So that's why it says in another case law that the people who reside in a state, which you don't, the people of the United States that's resident within any state are subject to two governments. One is state and the other is national. But there is no need for any conflict between the two, because if you're national, then, you deal with the Constitution is a national and international document itself. So it's the law of the land, and that's really what has been lacking is. And one last thing to add about corporations, and then I just want to say one other thing about some of the divisions we do as families. I headed this, I didn't finish my presentation last week, but I will, but I headed one of the slides, time spent climbing ladder of corpse, meaning of dead things, which is the corporation. Many of us say, I'm climbing the corporate ladder. And I have this visual of this person with the business bag climbing up a ladder to what looks like a corporation with a halo on their head and a devil's tail coming out. Now, here's the thing. You're climbing a ladder of the corporation so that you can feed the necessities of that corporation. You got to understand, because the corporation that exists has needs in order to continue to exist. It has needs. So you're climbing the ladder thinking you're climbing for your personal success or what have you, and really you're filling and feeding the corporate need, shared ownership, corporate insured annuities, key person retirement income, freeing trapped surplus, replacing a key person, buying out a shareholder, providing collateral for loans, and shareholder estate planning, right? Okay? That's what you're feeding. Those are the corporate needs. So you're climbing a ladder to feed that. So this is an additional definition. A corporation, or clarity, is a legal fiction. It doesn't exist. Yes, it exists materially, but it is enshrouded in a blanket of deceit called corporate veil. The United States is a corporation for remuneration and for profit, and so are all the states, federal and otherwise, and all of their counties, parishes, cities, towns, and other subdivisions under the Clearfield Doctrine, 1943. You have to read that to get that. Now, the last thing I wanted to add is, like you're saying about us uniting. And you mentioned earlier about people saying, well, I'm starting a nation or I'm starting something new, and that is the biggest sign. When you hear somebody say, we're starting something new, then you already know that they're not about uniting of existing families. They're not about they're not about accepting the fact that we're all on our family ancestral estate. They want to start something new. And another and the last thing that I want to say, because some people, they try to find any reason at all to knock down another person, group, association, or whatever, and they like to do it without any real substance, all right? So that's why often we don't use names of anything. We just say this. If we or anyone else is going to deal with principles, and just put them out there. If the shoe fits, you wear it, or whatever like that. If you hear it from someone else and you know it not to be right, fine. But one of the things that was attacked, people like to attack, is Moorish American. All right. Now, Moorish American was a political jurisdiction established for Moors. Moors were Moors before the Prophet came on the scene. Absolutely. There is no question about that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be about your birthright, because you weren't birthed from Prophet Noble Ali at all. So he came to tell you about your birthright and your nationality. And with all due respect and no dishonor at all to him at all whatsoever, because he studied that subject matter of nationality. And so when Moorish American was established, it was established as a political jurisdiction under the family, though, okay? Now, on our card, we put Moor American. Some people want Moorish American. Some people attack Moorish American as that's a verb. If it's Moorish, then something's wrong with it. So that's one of the things that I've heard before, and I'm hearing it again now. It's still going now with telling people who don't study enough to really know, or, that's the opinion of others. But it doesn't matter in the respect that we know that this is Northwest Amexem. We know that this really, if you go back further, it's La Moria, which means the land of the Moors. That's what La Moria means. And we know that it also was considered Northwest Africa in terms of these terms of contemporary, modern terms, as well as North America. It's the ancestral estate. So therefore, when you get to America and you look at, well, who are the Americans, you have the definition of that. They're not Indians. This is not India. That could have been the bastardization of indigenous, but they're not Indians. They're the Americans. They're Americans originally done, or Al Morocco, with the bastardization of that and the a change of acceptance in modern terms. So no matter how you say it, we know that Europeans are not Americans. Now, I say that they are of an American citizenship, but not really, but yes and no, because they are specifically of the United States of America, which, look, there was lots of people living in fixed territories and states on this land long before they even got here, under different family appellations or family, names, if you will. But it was a specific call to specifically call them the United States of America. No one else is called the United States of America except for that political jurisdiction that was established for them. And what that simply means is that they're not your family. So how can they tell you what to do with your family? Because as you said earlier, a government is family. That's why when you really look at the etymology of words, governmental, that's family. That's mine, man, that's mine. How do they get to govern? And you already know the disdain and the intent of birthright theft, so how in the heavens to Betsy would you have them governing your family? It just doesn't make any sense. So these services, which means they're not government, are only established because they see the lack in you and I and our family of our own counsel and our own counseling of our family due to the lack of knowledge, which was already well known that we suffer for lack of knowledge. And, why that happened, we can go in, you got to go into the history in order to understand the law. We got to do all of that. But it's not to say that our family doesn't need help. Of course it needs help. If you don't know who you are, how can you teach that to your posterity? It's not going to happen. So when we look at it from the a perspective where, like, we understand that a lot of people are coming in and they just want, what do I have to do to get these people off my back? I'm just going to tell them I'm a Moorish American, or I'm a Moor American, or I'm a Moor, or I'm American. I mean, we're more an American. It's really the same thing. If you really understand, it's the same thing. It means exactly the same thing in terms of foreign American. But, with that, so, we are the Americans. And now when you tell these Europeans you're American, they look at you like, some of them like shudder because they really believe they're the only Americans. Now, I also have on one of the layouts, I found a letter handwritten for the request of the treaty and the request of these modern Europeans who were left here by the British to basically die. And they were requesting agreements, treaties with everybody, every family they could to try to get their own safety up, and their own protection, et cetera, like that. Now, this is, I'm not going to go through every piece of the history because all the puzzle pieces are there. And, finally, of course, they got that with the representative of our nation, which was the Moorish nation, which would have had the title of a sultan, to actually make that agreement with them and their plenipotentiaries, which are their representatives of the United States of America. But when they were requesting, they admit in it that the Mexican states were here. So check this out. If it is admitted prior to even a treaty was even made that the Mexican Republic was here, which is, this is a Mexican, and that's family. That's the descendants, descendants of Moors. And it's admitted and it's written. It's already done, but yet today they're saying that Mexicans aren't real Americans. Well, you got to understand that when they say that, they mean they're not real United States of American family members. And that all of that needs to come out of their mouth at the same time. And then when that happens, you and I need to recognize that that's not our jurisdiction. That's not the family that we're under, not the United States of America. That was formed for them. And so then when you understand that, then you understand their limits, because even in the handwritten, it says the limits and limits on something. They know that there's limitations to whatever agreement would be made because this is not their ancestral estate. They're not the Aboriginal indigenous people. So even with that, they understood the limits. Well, the constitutions are also prescribes and subscribes, scribes and prescribes, and their limits. But we are to know what they are so we could recognize a long time ago when we were violated. So with that being said, I just wanted to, say that the time now is not for us to debate about these things. And lastly, the use of gold and silver. Gold and silver is definitely a valuable alloy. There's no question about that. If you have that, you can exchange it, for something valuable, but you're not going to buy bread with it tomorrow and get change. That's not going to happen. But it is valuable. However, in the Constitution, it clearly tells you that those who are members of the United States of America, they had to have gold and silver, not you. Not you, although, again, it has a value to it. So I wanted to say all of these things because to go with what you're saying, and this just to express how you're right about us fighting each other and not being family. And, again, if anybody's talking about starting something new, you should automatically know that they're not about really expanding what was granted to us by our ancestors. They, at all, they're not really looking at family. And so to segue into, unless there's some other comments on this, I don't know. I think one of the topics we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to add that to what you said.
Yeah, and you know what? Jayana has this letter that the prophet wrote to someone, and she read me a little bit of it. And one of the things, she was going to send it to us. You know how it is when we all get busy. But I was asking her to read a portion of it because when you listen to what he wrote, it clears up a lot of this thing. Like the prophet was so clearly, all right. She said, let Ms. talk because she's looking for the letter.
I wanted to say something before you do that.
Yeah, but she's looking for it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I know, but before you do that. I also meant to mention about religion. You have some people say, well, we're not, religion. The prophet, let's straighten this out. The prophet made a religious corporation. That's not true. I mean, that's true that he has a religious affidavit added on to what was already existing. So part of people out here who hear people tell you that, you better do your own studies and get it straight. Because he was operating as an old Canaanite temple. He operated as the Moor's holy temple of science, referred to as the Moor's temple of science, leaving out the holy other people did. And then he went into the Moor Science Temple of America, a religious arm and a religious affidavit because in connection with Amendment 1, because of religious freedom, the door to religion swings both ways. But when he did that, he still had the Moorish Holy Temple Civic Organization going on. So don't let people pigeonhole him into a religious organization only, and that's the biggest thing that people do today. And I think a lot of people do it to discredit, to get you to come over to what they're doing, and they actually believe that what they're doing, what we're doing is not religious, and like the prophet stuff was. No, the people to call the people who are even administering supposedly enforcing what he did calls it religion, and they call it the way they call it. They calling it pseudo, because first of all, pseudo-religion, because people don't even really know what religion is. If you really want to know what he thought religion was, you need to read Religious Controversy that he wrote. And then that would get you to understand what his understanding of religion is not what people are giving you today, because I recall, let's go back a little bit, that when after this information started blowing up, some of these people in some of these temples said they're going to show everybody, and they're going to put their Sunday services that I call reverse church. They're going to put, really, they're going to put it up on the YouTube, and people are going to see exactly what the Science Temple is all about. And then, in a way, I was like, well, that's the best thing that you could have done, because now you just proved to the people what you are and are not. You know what I'm saying? So then, now today, now they're saying, oh, if you're not adept, you're not really a Moor. I mean, what these people are trying to say to you, I understand to an extent, that if you're not studying your own stuff about your own history, about your own heritage, then you're not really full with it. You know, you got to be full with it. You got to take it all the way, because your history is illustrious, and history and law go together. And you're out here trying to uphold law and all that, and you don't have a history, so therefore you can't really have a law. You can't receive it unless you have it both. As far as religion goes, if you don't understand the science of religion, that it's science, then you're going to receive it as pseudo. And that's exactly what's happening. So I said all that to say, don't anybody tell you, the prophet's work is just religious, because first of all, they're talking about pseudo-religious when they say that, and they know everybody is turned off from religion, but just read religious controversy, because the prophet knew you were turned off from it too. So that's why he wrote it. Many know that something's wrong. Some say it's the preachers in the churches, and some say it just is not, it's not worth the time to take to do it. And then he goes on to say, but the sun hangs at high noon, and you comprehend it not. Because he takes you straight to astrology, because he knows. All right? And that light that comes from the east, he's talking about the rising of the sun, religiously from that perspective. But then you got people out there trying to force you into believing that he was that his whole thing, which is a dishonor to him, was some pseudo-religious stuff, just because the leaders, so-called leaders of the establishments today, operated as if it's a religious choice. In fact, people did not even go down this road because they thought it was a religious choice, and secondly, because there was no missionaries, since this is a missionary program, out on every corner for the past 100 years, let's say, or however long it's been, letting you know otherwise. They didn't exist. So I just wanted to add that. I forgot. You made me think of that when you talked about religion, All right. Peace and love.
Yes, that was hot.
Indeed.
Indeed. Yeah.
I just want to add on a few things real quick. While you were speaking about religion and people's misperception of it, it kind of correlates with the word more in American in multiple aspects, because people don't really understand what it means. Like you were just saying, they, shun it because they don't know what it is. And the way it's been presented is people know there's something wrong with that in their spirit and soul, because they're getting the program or doctrine of dogma, opposed to true religious philosophy, dealing with the stars, the planetary bodies, and just being a master of yourself right here on this earth plane. A lot of that has a lot to do with, reconstructed history. It happens all the time. And I just wanted to say this real quick, real brief. I'm not going to dwell on it long. But a perfect example of this happening is right in our face this very day, whereas with that perfect example, that club in Orlando, where they say that's the earliest shooting in U.S. history. That's a bold-faced lie, and that's not no disrespect to anybody who got hit up in the crossfires or whatever happened. But what I'm saying is that is an absolute blatant lie to say that 50 people shot in the club is the deadliest shooting ever regarding or relative to the U.S. Now, we could name a very long list of other incidents that disprove that. But just take one, for example, because you was talking about law and history going together, and you have to know them both to really get the understanding. So as it relates to our ancestral state, Northwest of Mexum, North America, or Al Morocco, correlative to these modern European, these modern Europeans relative to the relations, good, bad, and indifferent, that we had right here on this soil. If you just look at the Battle of Wounded Knee, All right? You're talking about a massacre way more extensive than that, you know? And one of the things that stood out to me is that there were altogether 300 people murdered, and we're talking with gunfire, not just, you know, burning houses down or lynching people by trees. We're talking gunfire. 300 people murdered, 51 were wounded. And out of the 51 that was wounded, I find it interesting that it was only 4 brothers and 47 women and children. So that goes to show what the importance on the attack was. Now, as you were saying earlier about Moor and American, you know, this is imperative history because they're trying to rewrite history right in front of our eyes this very day. Not something that happened 20 years ago. We're talking today. They are promoting this reconstructed history, all on the tube, all on the TV and whatnot. So my thing is, keep in mind when they say that they're blatantly, you know, deleting or trying to delete a portion of history that's very, very relevant. Because basically what they're doing, because you were speaking of religion, and they're trying to blame it on Islamic terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. Basically what they're really doing is trying to wash out the blood on their hands from the Christian conquest intent. Since it's on the table, let's really talk about it. Because the whole origins of Christianity being imposed on the people. Now, the thing is, people, you know, in the downgraded state of mind when they think religion, think of mosque and church, for the most part. But the thing is that misperception is they're covering up the tracks of Christianity. These were people who are Christians, professed, have treaties in the name of Christians. So my thing is understanding religion as well as understanding the true free national appellation of our people, which is Moors and Americans, Asiatics, etc. But all of these apply. We are the true Americans. And when we look at this, right, you know, originally it was the Spanish who came over, you know, with Colombo, sanctioned and whatnot. I mean, we could go back further than that if you're talking about the Vikings, etc. But that's debatable if that was Europeans, because they're saying those was Moors who was visiting from Europe. So I don't accredit that to the Europeans. What they claim is that they came here in 1492. And they did have a conquest intent that also included stripping you of your identity. All right? This was a major part of it. And this is one of their provisional methods to actually keep the people subjected. And when you were talking about the free national appellation and we all have to unite, I think one of the major things we have to understand too is, you know, that there's a ancient. It's not to say superior. I don't want to feel like or have anybody feel like, you know, a superiority complex, but there is a relationship of as it applies on this ancestral state, the North, South, Central America, that there are lineal descendants to the land or heirs, etc., which automatically makes a distinguishment between us and these monsters. You know, and I mean that in every legal, lawful aspect of the word monster, you know, having no inheritable blood to this land. So one of the main things we really have to understand, we have to unite on, is the fact that we are Moors, that we are Americans, we are Al-Moroccans. Because if not, I turn on the tube sometimes and I just get disgusted when I see Europeans talking about we got to put borders up to defend our country, speaking in the context of North America. And then, you know, on the other hand, there's some Moors who still think they're Negro, black, and colored, and they've been told, they've been shown, but that's where they're at. But what happens is, as I wanted to make this point in understanding the uniting of Asia or planet Earth, that jurisdiction does mean a lot. So when we are saying that we're black and that and letting them claim to be American, in law, what that's called is a courtesy title to your ancestral estate. All right? Now understand this. I'm going to read this definition, and this is out of the Unabridged Dictionary, Webster's, page 389. Or excuse me, yeah, that might be in the Henry Campbell Black's Law as well. But it says courtesy title, a title assumed by an individual or given to him by popular consent to which he has no valid claim. So when they are claiming that they're Americans, and we are saying our Moorish brethren and sisters, Asiatics, the true Americans, are saying that they're Negro, black, and colored. In law, and the assumption from there is that they have courtesy title from the lineal descendants to the land themselves. All right? So that's why they operate with such an air of authority over your estate. Now, mind you, we're talking about modern Europeans, right? Old English people. Now, we know Moors have history that's interrelated to them on every aspect. But a lot of people adopted this dead mentality that we're a conquered nation, there's no hope for us, it's over, and all of this. And as I said before, this goes back to land, because when you're speaking about conquerors, right, and conquest, etc., you're speaking of these modern Europeans, the language that has been influential throughout the Aboriginals based off of this imposition is English. So in your Henry Campbell's Black's Law Dictionary, there's a definition of conqueror. And I find it interesting. Now, yes, there's one in international law as well, but to really take this and look at this concept, that conquering is not necessarily about killing people. It is not. It's about a mental warfare, because it says here, definition of conqueror, Old English and Scotch law, a conqueror is the first purchaser of an estate, he who first brought an estate into his family owning it, all right? And he was talking about family and government going hand in hand. So when you're talking about the first purchaser, and this is relative to a conqueror, you could clearly see what's going on today and what the remedy is for Moors in a standing ancestral estate. Because what? An ancestral estate cannot be brought, sold, or transferred. There's no other consideration than that of blood. And when you look at the definition of monster in your Ballantyne's 1948, they're telling you in there that a monster is one who has no inheritable blood. So that's not us. We don't have those inferior classes attached to us, to our existence. It doesn't belong to us. And when we understand that we are the true Americans, embrace that. Don't hate that. You'll understand that these people are trying to close people out, foreclose on their homes, and this is all based off of the land. So these conquerors, you clearly see, are into banking, the monopoly, all of these things. So you need to understand it's bigger than that. Yes, there is diversity. We are not the same. We are not. And the thing is this, it also goes into conquest, which in feudal law, conquest is an acquisition by purchase. Any method of acquiring the ownership of an estate acquired otherwise than by inheritance. So the conquerors and the conquest, necessarily it was violence involved, don't get me wrong, but everything wasn't about that. You still see their conquest and conqueror mission in effect today when they say that, they're buying and selling homes on your ancestral estate. Moors, Americans who think that they're Negro, black, and colored, wake up. You know what I mean? Because it's all types of warfare going on around you. Everything isn't always about the guns and the knives and the bombs, though that had played a part in the history. If you look back at it, as I was mentioning earlier, they try to write that part of history out as well. A perfect example of what's going on today. But also to understand that the economic warfare is in effect, and they're trying to conquer through that. But the main point, again, like I said, is when you do not understand that we are the ancient Americans, our Moroccans, and you let the Europeans claim that, you give them a courtesy title, which again is a title assumed by an individual or given to him by popular consent to which he has no valid claim. Understand that. Also, conqueror in international law is the acquisition of sovereignty of a country by force of arms exercised by an independent power which reduces the vanquished to the submission of its empire. All right, so, yeah, you know, in international law, conqueror, there's many methods to conquering. But keep in mind in Old English and Scotch law, because we're talking about being under the oppression of the Englishmen and all of this, that their method of conquering was not necessarily killing, but it was involved. Just again, I'm going to read this again and re-emphasize something. The conqueror in Old English and Scotch law, the first purchaser of an estate, he who first brought an estate into his family owning it. The perfect example of that was a story with Pocahontas marrying a European, as far as, you know, he who had brought an estate into his family owning it. But again, it goes back to gold and silver coins you were talking about. But altogether, the fact that the land, the ancestral estate, can't be brought or sold. It can't be brought or sold. And then again, conqueror, conquest, in Scotch law, it just simply means purchase. You know, it simply means purchase. So then that could take you to, if you would like to go there, that would take you into the Louisiana purchase, all of these things which were fraud because ancestral estates can't be brought or sold. Now, another thing I wanted to emphasize on this, and now I want to take up the floor, but the thing is this. I had an epiphany again, whereas I was realizing I was in the Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, Revised 4th Edition, and I was reading the definition of vassal states. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that all these quasi-national domiciles who are claiming to be states, they're really in the status of vassal states. Because in international law, vassal states mean states which are supposed to possess only those rights and privileges which have been expressly granted to them, which will be the Constitution. There's constitutional limitations and boundaries, things they can and cannot do, all right? However, to go on, it says, all right, so states which are supposed to possess only those rights and privileges which have been expressly granted to them, but actually they, speaking of the states, seem to be well nigh independent. So my thing is this, when people act like these quasi-national domiciles who are claiming to be states are actually independent sovereign powers, you have to understand the relationship between the Almoroccans or Americans, Moors, right, being the lords of that situation, and those Europeans being the corporations that they instituted, actually being vassal states or aggregations or congregations, if you will, because they only have the powers that are expressly granted to them. But in these present days, they seem to be well nigh independent. But that's not true. That's not true. And that's what I was saying as far as there being distinguishment between us, you know, as far as the quote-unquote master-servant relationship and things of that nature. So I felt as though it was imperative to share that, because as well as we talk master-servant relationship, you got to remember Islam also means I, self-law, and master. So that goes back to autonomy. And as a nation, whatever, and this is again why Noble Drali told you that, so you didn't get this twisted, that we honor all true and divine prophets, Confucius, Buddha, Muhammad, and Yeshua. Now, each one of those were attached to different branches of philosophies that were called religions, which were really philosophies based off of religion. So that when you look at these different things, you see the face, the image of it, just like different institutions have like a face of their institution. Like, let's say, for example, KFC. they had the dude was the face of that particular corporation, the colonel dude. He was the face of that. So you see that face and you associate it with that institution. Same thing today with certain religions. Not to say that it's corporate, but when you see a Buddha image, what do you think? You think Buddhism. You know, when you see, for the most part, some people anyway, when you see the image of Yeshua, you think Christianity, you know, etc. When you see a hijab, you think Islam, etc. So there's different things that associate with perception. And to let you know not to get this confused, we have honor and respect for all of these things. So you can't single out one and say that, you know, the rest is garbage, because he told you to have an honor and respect for all of those. So no matter which way you want to look at this, he widened the scope for us to really see this picture clear. And that's really what it is. And I speak of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, El Hajj Sharif. So my thing is back to that, and everybody who ameliorated and tried to keep his lessons in the forefront from then to now. But again, understanding who we are and who we are not, these modern Europeans in law, international law, we are not the same. We don't have the same political jurisdiction. We don't have the same bloodline inheritance. We don't have the same autonomy, etc. So everything is all good. You know, every living thing is connected to every other living thing, but everything is not the same. And we have to understand that. We have to understand that. And that's just what it is. So when, again, you give them that title of American and you debating that you black, they're going to treat you accordingly by conquering you in old English law, making you have to purchase land that they claim they purchased, which was already your ancestral estate, but you out here busting ass to get finance to buy back what's already yours, instead of understanding what it is, what your lineal, what nation you descend from, and what that actually means. It goes beyond your mom and father, beyond your grandparents. It goes back in all honors to mothers and fathers, specifically, because without them, we wouldn't be here saying we have an ancient lineage. But that's because they have an ancient lineage as well. So, again, do not give them those courtesy titles by abandoning your free national appellation, you know. So Moors, those Moors who think that they're Negro, black, and colored, African American, yes, I'm talking to you as well. I'm talking to Moors who know they're Moors. Know that when that's happening, what it is, and why ancestral estate is imperative to know, and why language is important, so that you won't be giving these monsters a courtesy title to your ancestral estate by your own confession. And with that, I yield the floor. Islam.
Wow. You know what? I want to add one thing to what he said. One thing. When he said this goes beyond your mother and father that you know of yesterday or of today or whatever like that, because it goes back to the original grantor, which are your ancestors, which is why you can't grant jack, because it's already been granted to you. And it can't be bought, sold, or transferred. Islam.
Islam. Let's see. I'm not sure if Jayana is ready yet, but, you know, some people put some quotes up on Facebook, and I just want to make a couple of comments on it, as it relates to this so-called allegation that there was some greatest massacre in the history.
Yeah.
All right. This is what I found on Facebook. Before we begin spreading the lies of the deadliest mass terrorist shooting in U.S. history, let's not forget East St. Louis massacre 1917, 200 to 700 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas massacre 1919, 854 deaths. Tulsa Massacre, 1921, 300 to 3,000 deaths. Rosewood Massacre, 1923, 150 deaths. Let's not forget about Roswell, and also the what they called so-called Black Wall Street. That was an entire community that was murdered and does not exist to this day. In 1917, a modern European mob killed a record number of 250 to 700 Asiatic people in East St. Louis. Asiatic men, women, and children were murdered. Even the babies were thrown into fire. This is the biggest massacre in American history. All right, so you know, these people, they want to talk about it. And I don't watch the media. I don't have. Look, there's some things to me. What we have to do as a people is we got to recognize that we are being manipulated by these various corporations. And, you know, for like some time now, I've noticed this, but once we put out this Final Call series and we began it, it was like the universe was bringing me everything just to substantiate that, yeah, this is the final call, and yes, you are on the right track, and yes, we have got to, all of us, all of the people. This is not about the skin complexion, because that's what they use to keep us fighting each other instead of uniting. This is not about a nation, okay, because whether you like it or not, this land was here long before modern Europeans came and long before any new wannabe nations by anybody was established in 2012, 14, or 16. All right? This land was here. This land here, it's already a matter of record that this is the ancestral estate of the Moor, Aboriginal indigenous people of this land. So this land, its resources, from the center of the earth all the way up to the universe, is the inheritance already. So if you're starting something new, you must have a planet somewhere else that you're claiming as your homeland, because this one has already been claimed, but that's the folly of it. For anybody to come along and make that presumption, you just said, I'm participating in keeping the family divided, hence modern Europeans can continue to keep us at each other's throats, as opposed to us uniting and getting these corporate people off of our backs so we can live in peace. And then we can sit down and have discussions about our family lineage. And maybe we might find out some new and interesting stuff and embrace rather than repel each other. At the center of all of this is corporations. Corporations got us believing that poison is good for us. They have us believing that when we send our children to these institutions they call schools that are run by the very corporations that's attacking us, that they're going to be informed on how to not be attacked by the corporation that is attacking us. All right? Corporations have us believing that we have to use Federal Reserve notes, which is an instrument of debt. It is an IOU. That's all you have to do is analyze it. It came about in 1930, I want to say the 1930s to the 1965, somewhere in there. What was we doing before that? We was living free. All right? Corporations have us thinking that we have to go into various corporations that call themselves grocery store and exchange a debt note in order to eat. This is not just a problem for the Moors, the Moorish nation. This is a problem for the United States of America nation as well. And what's really atrocious is that now, to further cause confusion, they are incorporating into the infrastructure of the United States of America government body, not government body, the United States of America corporation infrastructure, Asiatics. And you got Asiatics incorporating into the Moorish infrastructure to some extent, modern European. So now when you look into certain things, you see, in terms of the United States of America, you see people that look like the Moorish family and vice versa, so it gets confusing, but that's what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to confuse you. The American Constitution was written to protect us, protect our children and our future generations. But we as a people, we have got to wake up and enforce it. I was talking with my daughter the other day, and she told me how there's a lot of families. Well, let me just say this. Every single corporation, I don't care who they are, if they do not have a product or a service, are, like I said last week, they are the only welfare recipients on this continent today, because the government, it's right in the Constitution, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. Government has an obligation to make sure that all people have the basic necessities. That's the flesh and blood being. Their obligation is not to make sure that corporations are using federal dollars or federal credit that is given so that the people can live in peace. Corporations who then turn around and attack the very people they're receiving the credit for. That's called treason. But unless the people know that they never had to go and beg anyone for anything, they will continue to behave this way. They will have you thinking that if something is wrong with your child, you got to go beg somebody to give you some credit that they got because you exist anyway, so that you can take care of your child medically. But then they say, no, you can't have that credit unless you go to XYZ company, corporation that they call hospital. But these hospitals have no intentions of assisting you. No, they're going to use you as research guinea pigs and then charge you for that privilege. And people today, the nation, believe that they are being provided for when they get these things that attack them on a family basis. They believe that they're getting something, and they feel absolutely provided for, even as they go crying because they're cutting these things that they're getting credit for. It's such a madness. It is a madness. And it's going to continue if we don't stop participating in these petty squabbles that do nothing for us as a people, as a nation, as a family. It does nothing for us. We have got to wake up. Everybody, Moors and modern Europeans, we have got to wake up and bring this land back to being the land of the free, home of the brave, because we stepped up and we said, listen, all you politicians, you work for me, and if you don't provide for me, if you don't honor that American Constitution, I'm going to remove you. And it's not going to be about voting you out. It's going to be about moving you out, because there should never be a time when the public servant lives better than the people. That is an absolute travesty. Islam?
Absolutely. So, yeah. I just want to take a quote from Marcus Garvey real quick. This is a quote from the Opinions and Philosophies of Marcus Garvey, Chapter 1. It says, chance has never yet satisfied the hopes of a suffering people. Action, self-reliance, the vision of self, and the future have been the only means by which the oppressed have seen and realized their own freedom. All right? So, just wanted to say that for the record.
Yes.
And that goes...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that goes back to autonomy and actually knowing thyself. You know, knowing yourself and then you know others. So, you know, action, self-reliance, the vision of self, and the future have been the only means by which the oppressed have seen and realized their own freedom. That's it. I mean, I can't say there's not other methods, but think about that. That's definitely something to think about because chance has never yet satisfied the hopes of a suffering people. Something concrete, solid, visionaries, self-reliance, you know, not because like Noble Drew Ali said, we are not a beggar nation. It's not about begging the Europeans for something or anything. You know, like you said, it's going to get to the point where people are going to have to literally be moved out the way because in all reality, USA is not a nationality. It is a body politic, but not a nationality. These people who claiming that they are the USA and this is the USA, no, they have a nationality just like we do, and theirs traces back to Europe, modern Europeans. So international law, the diversity is always between us. That's the relationship. That's what it is. That's what it's going to be because it just is what it is. We are not the same. It's just not so. Again, every living thing is connected to every other living thing, but everything has a station. And until we realize, like you said, who is who and what is what and recognize ours, then, you know, because, I mean, it's just so much right now. It's crazy. It's so much adversity from in-house and out-house. Because, like you said, you got Moors who are trying to mix with the Europeans, and all is well. I'm not knocking you. I love all Moors. I love everybody. But Noble Drew Ali said we do not wish to amalgamate with the pale-skinned nations of Europe for a reason. For a reason. Yes, we have to have certain relationships because we coexist on this planet. It is what it is. But the point is that there's we have to have the self-reliance vision. Like, what if all the Europeans packed up and went to Europe tomorrow? What would you do? What would we do? You know what I mean? Do you have a vision for that? Because I mean, I'm just saying, when you talk about self-reliance, the vision of self and the future, okay, we can't necessarily say the Europeans are not going to have anything to do with it because, like Noble Drew Ali says, some of them are going to teach us government. And we've been learning. We've been going back to those texts that was overlooked or not really put out there like that and things of that nature and watching different examples of things. But the point is that though we have an aspect of autonomy, and I'm speaking to Moors right here in the Americas, North, South, Central, specifically North, we have a birthright of autonomy that is not dependent on the will of Europeans, just strictly the will of Allah. That's it. You know, so understanding that because this is the thing, treated the relationship with ourselves and Europeans as if it was a precarious thing for too long at this particular point. Like everything that has to happen has to be based off of their permission type of aspect. And that's not the relationship. That's not what it's supposed to be like. Now, granted, you know, there's some people still today, if you take them out the chains, they won't go anywhere. They will stay on the plantation because that's the mental conditioning. They will be there just because Master didn't give them permission. So I understand the adversities and the dangers, but I mean, like, as a collective, we're going to have to realize, okay, we have an autonomy, and these are the limitations, regulations that these Europeans are bound to respect. Because as I said before, these quasi-national domiciles are basically like vassal states. That's what it is. So the Constitution, like you said, is what keeps them in check. These are the limitations. These are your obligations. And we could just go in on the Ninth Amendment for years, just on the Ninth Amendment, as far as their relationship, to understand, you know, that we off of that aspect of being mental slaves, you know, and this is what it is. Now it gets to the point where, well, does history repeat itself? Do we have to have violence involved to actually exercise our freedoms? Is like this what you really want? Like, I mean, it's not what the people generally want. But goddamn, you go to the store and a policy enforcer harasses you, you know what I mean? Wants to pull you out your conveyance and all of this extra stuff. You know what I mean? Like, what are you really saying? And then where's the checks and balances at as far as who's keeping that in order? Because the ignorance or turning the blind eye to the situation it leaves people to eventually say, we're not dependent on you no more, not because we want to be arrogant, because we see the pattern of your behavior. And this is what it is. We know you're not trustworthy. You breached the Constitution on multiple occasions. We know that. Doesn't mean that it's not valid, because you're still obligated to it. But we're talking about our salvation and looking forward to the future. If this keeps happening, the path is going to have to be visioned without them. And I'm not saying we're going to have to go to war, but we're not going to keep depending on arrogant, malicious, malefic, full of hatred, jealousy, green-eyed people for our salvation. I'm not with it anymore. I'm just not. I mean, I know that that's not all of them, but what I'm saying is these people who are in these positions have an agenda. It's not like they just there. They are there with an agenda of generating revenue, finance, etc., extorting the people under color of law. That's the mission. That's it. They're on a mission. That's it. So to step outside of that and be able to step before them and still hold down your birthright and protect and defend your birthright with no precarious mentality of them, you know, all due respect at all times, but you're exercising your birthright. Why? Why? Because it's yours, just like your breath. Just like you breathe, your mother gave you a body, you know what I mean, head top to bottom, and it has an internal function. So does your rights. You know, they have an internal living function. So that's not dependent on them. You know, like you don't ask somebody else for permission to breathe. You just do it because that's how you have to. You gotta live. So that's not even something you're looking outside of somebody else for. To validate you being able to breathe. Now, I can't say everything is compared to that, but I'm saying as far as exercising our birthrights, this is the mentality it has to come to. Because if you're waiting for somebody to give you permissions, you're still in the subjected state of mind. Why? Because a license is permission. So you're still basically asking for a license to exercise your birthright. It's nothing, or to breathe. It's not something that somebody can give you permission for. Now, there's only one way a man is created. There's 1,000 ways for him to be destroyed. So you could get a malicious, malefic, demonic, spirited person or being who will try to take your next breath or whatever, take your life from you. We've seen that on camera multiple times too. And what? There's no repercussions. So the thing is, us living is not dependent on them, you know, and that was my main point, is that when Noble Drew Ali said that Moors are men upright, independent, and fearless, when he was speaking of that independence, that upright and fearless, I believed him. I definitely believed him. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even about belief. I just get it. I really get it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
The independent aspect. It's not even about belief. It's the fact that any nation that is not independent on the international level is what? Subjects. They're in a servitude status. So what he was telling you is that we are free, you know, and that's basically what it boils down to, you know. And again, you let some people, you could take them off the cuffs. They stand right on the plantation waiting for the permission of a pale face. Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no, pardon me. That's what I wanted to say. And one more thing, and I'm going to yield the floor with this. It's so much about North America that we have to find out still about right here. Like, you know, it's simple to get our position, but then there's so much more to be found out right here on this North American continent. And I say that going back to you was mentioning about being on the right track. Well, we were in our travels on the train tracks, headed south and north. And I kid you not, this in a remote location that only the train goes past. You cannot ride a land conveyance past this. You can't walk past this. You have to walk up in the woods to get to it. There's a stone pyramid, so-called Virginia today. And I mean, the math of it is just like the pyramids in Giza. It's not super big, but you could definitely vouch for this. We missed the picture, but the fact that there's just this pyramid there in North America with the same structure. You got a trinity. You got 4 triangles on each side. So that's the 4 and the 12, just like you see on the Federal Reserve note. In a very remote part of North America, if you will, which again you cannot even ride a land conveyance past. The only way you will see it is if you take this train. That's the only way you're going to see it, because the train cuts through the woods and through the ancestral estate, which makes me think, what else is out there in these remote places that we need to be up on, you know, because this is our ancestral estate. There is a lot of things we don't see, you know, being in the cities, and then the roads being just, you know, limited to certain directions. But then you look back in these different woods when you're traveling on the highways and things, you see these little paths all on the ancestral estate, ancient paths that may run parallel with the road you're on, the path you're on. And there's things back there that we have no idea of. So my thing is, we need to do some more field research, because there's a lot of information that's waiting for Moors. It's just screaming for Moors to tell a story. So I say that to say that we have history that the European is not included in, and we have history that the European is included in. But they don't have any history that doesn't include us. That's the difference between ancient and modern lineage. And with that, I respectively yield the floor, and I just want to re-emphasize, pardon me, that for all those who might listen to this and are under the impression that the Negro, Black, and colored people, African American, etc., understand that you are the Moor, you are the American, you are the true American Al-Moroccan people. And when you understand that, and you sit with that, and you let that grow with you, all right, you will get to the point where you'll realize by your confessions, you could be giving these Europeans a courtesy title to your land. And again, you know, that's one only by popular consent or opinion. So, and they're going to assume it based off the fact that the heirs to the land who are in the mental slavery are under the impression that, or since it was said by the heirs of the land themselves, the lineal descendants, they will run with that as the most valid sanction there could ever be to have a claim to the land when the lineal descendants are saying that this is the title that these modern Europeans possess. And when I say monsters, I don't mean any type of fairy tale story. I mean the legal definition of not having inheritable blood to the North American land, and why they wanted to amalgamate with Moors, but why, as a pure and clean nation, Noble Drew Ali reminded you that as a pure and clean nation, we do not wish to amalgamate with the pale-skinned nations of Europe. But again, everybody has their free will, and with that, I respectively yield the floor. Islam.
Islam. Yes. Jayana, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Hey, did you find that document?
I did not. I had it yesterday, I think a couple of days ago, and it's in my computer somewhere, and I always find it when I'm not looking for it. But I do. Well, I don't know what I can save them. I have like a million folders. And I didn't even know I was going to be put on blast today. So, yeah.
Did you recall what it said to some extent?
What'd you say, Sister Ross?
Islam. I said, do you recall what it says to some extent? Or
yeah. I do remember. It was a letter, and he was saying he was talking to a brother, and it was a situation. But I'm not gonna get that definite because I want to read the letter because it was deep. But basically, the point that Sister N.E. wanted me to make is that in this letter, he was saying something to the extent that he's just a son, and he's just coming here because he had orders. He got orders, and he's just following his orders. So anything else, kind of the same thing as when he was Jesus. I'm just a brother. I'm just your brother. I'm just coming here to show you the way. I'm not anything more than that. So it was just something to that extent. I don't know if that's the right letter you were talking about, Sister Annie.
Yes, yeah. Because a lot of people, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and they totally discredit the fact that on the front of the 101, he's holding up Mother. He's holding her up because he's waiting for her to wake up and take over the running of her heritage. And so when in that what you was reading to me, it demonstrates that. That's why he was like, look, I'm just a son. I'm just a son. I had a mission to come and wake up fallen humanity, and that's what I did. Now in order for you to really get it, you got to know who fallen humanity is. Fallen humanity is her. Because if she's asleep, everything that comes out of her is going to be coming out of sleep. So she's got to be she's the one that's got to get woke up. And that's what he came to do. Had a big problem with it then. We got a big problem with it today. That's why you see a lot of these sons running around here talking about, well, we reestablished the nation. Well, what nation ain't never went nowhere because Mother always been here. If Mother goes away, ain't nothing going to be here. It don't change, and it doesn't change. Nothing change just because Mother is asleep or even the son is asleep. Doesn't change the fact that we're still here. And so we need to recognize that. The prophet said that we have an illustrious history. So we have an illustrious history, and the majority of us know nothing about our history. Everybody always wants to stick within this 300 to 400 years when we were enslaved. But our history goes back millennium. All right? Do we know anything about that? How are we going to sit here and talk about we starting a new nation when we don't even know nothing or barely nothing about our ancient ancestors, that is that illustrious history that flows in our veins? that's just another form of division. And the prophet didn't bring division. He brought unity. That's why he said this is the uniting of Asia, because this is the uniting of the people. All people. And so we have to be careful, because if you come amongst someone and they're not speaking family unity, then you might want to rethink hanging out with them, because, you know, people will put a bad energy on you just from hanging around them. So we have to be careful, because if we are in the process of trying to clean ourselves up and get it together, and you're hanging around with somebody who's doing something that's contrary to that, you're going to have to make a serious decision. Now, I'm not telling you what the decision should be. I'm just saying you're going to have to make a serious decision. All right? Now, I'm trying to get my computer to unfreeze, but it's acting up right now, and I might need to reboot it. So, Roz or Ms. Rain, can you guys just continue on the subject?
Am I still muted?
Yeah, just mute yourself, because I'm still
okay.
trying to unfreeze.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
I wanted to make a comment on the topic of religion. You guys were talking about that. A lot of people were saying that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali just came on, you know, it was a religious movement, and Brother Cujo, Grand Sheik Cujo, just this Sunday demonstrated how it was just not just a religious movement, it was a civic movement, and he read some newspaper articles from newspapers, not of the Moorish newspaper, but just actual newspapers that were out during that time when Prophet Noble Drew Ali was alive and around, and they were talking about all of the the grocery stores that he had. They were talking about all of the stores that the Moorish community had, and all of the lawful things that they were doing. This was what they were saying in the local newspaper in different areas during that time. So it just was a really a good demonstration of how it was not, to me, just a religious movement, and he was doing a lot of other things outside of religion.
Well, that was in his writing himself. He says we established as a civic organization. That's in his writings today. I don't understand why people keep ignoring that, but I do understand why. It's real simple. Established as a civic organization, and then later created the religious affidavit for the Moor Science Temple of America. However, there is definitely, because I got them both, two different organizations established, one by him and one by some others, okay? And regardless to that, just looking at what he did do when he did it, he didn't close down the civic, he added unto. But what happened during the infiltration is they wanted people to think it was, in fact, only a religious choice, because they put in the places of the leaders, quote-unquote leaders, et cetera, like that, reverends and preachers and stuff like that. So they wanted it as Grand Sheiks. And some of them are still there today. And they wanted, or their successors are still there today with that mindset, they wanted it to be looked at as a religious choice only. And so they dropped the civic portion of it, and just all they propagandized was the religious part. Because that was on purpose. That was purposely done, so people could think that it was a religious choice only, and then they cut off the civic part. I mean, that's even true when they say, when was the Moorish Science of America established? And they say 1913. Well, that's a lie, because it wasn't established in 1913. If you look on the back of the affidavit itself, it says it was in 1929. So how could it have been established in 1913? Because it wasn't. So it's like they wanted to erase all the civic stuff and just interject the religious stuff. But see, the only way to find out is as we're having these discussions and you look at it and you analyze things yourself, and you'll see that it just doesn't make sense, you know.
And to add on to that, as far as the affidavit where it says 1928 or 1929, they later on after he passed, they another member, which is the letter that I was talking about that he wrote to, that member, he went afterwards and wrote up another affidavit.
Right.
And it was real crazy. I looked it up and I actually got it off of the Secretary of State website. And he went and he made it in 1930 something. And he actually, instead of, it was like Moor Science Temple of America or something like that. But then it's like literally he didn't even change the name. I think he changed like a little bit in the name, but it was something like maybe capitalized to lowercase, something really crazy. And he created another affidavit after him. And then all of the temples, most of all of the temples that I've looked up under the Secretary of State that do the thing where they have to, they send it like every 4 years to basically state that they continue and to do this business, whatever, or this temple. And I saw that all of them say they don't even mention the affidavit that Prophet Noble Drew Ali had put out there in 1929. They all say in accordance with the affidavit in 1937, I want to say, or 1936. But I know it's something. But yeah, they all put that, and then they say in regards to the laws or something like that. But it was so different from. I read both of the affidavits, and it was totally in Prophet Noble Drew Ali affidavit. He said, they're here to uplift fallen humanity and teach people, like that. And then the second one, he said that they came to basically sue anybody. This is what the affidavit, to sue anybody that's part of the Moorish, to say they're part of the Moorish temple and they are not a part of the Moorish temple, and to come up under the laws. This is what the new affidavit, and to come up under the laws of that state, that particular state, Illinois and / Ohio. They had made another one with Ohio because Cleveland was a big temple at that time too. In Cleveland, they had like a big near the area of Cleveland. They had a lot of members. So they, Illinois and Ohio had that, and so they, in their affidavits, they come up under the laws and incorporate, and Prophet Noble Drew Ali affidavit, and they incorporate into no state, nothing like that. And so it was just a big difference, and it's amazing how if you look up some of the temples, you just look up in the Secretary of State and you find, their names. They all are basically claiming under the 1937 and not under what the Prophet brought in 1928 and 29.
Exactly. That, I'm glad you put. That's exactly what's being said here. And what's so sad is that people who want to get involved today, they're catching them with that net of what they established thereafter, which is really a dishonor to to what was already principally done by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So if people didn't ferret out like what we're discussing, if you don't ferret that out, then they're bringing you into like what you said, what their mission is, and it is not what the Prophet set up and at all. And so you got people running, and they're getting caught into that, and they're operating like a club and all of that. And then it's so crazy because our EHX and here talking about North America specifically, particularly, and hear the truth about your nationality and your birth rate, you would think that they wouldn't be so discriminating with the people, because their whole mission, as far as the way the Prophet intended it, is a missionary program. They're supposed to be out pulling people and not creating barriers and you can't come in and who goes there and that's not what he established to do at all. Like you said, originally he's a civic organization. And then he says we're teaching our people to be better citizens. So right there, that tells you it's civics right there. It's so many things. I did a PowerPoint presentation on that years ago, and I could probably upgrade that even better now because I've found more proof. Like you just said, you found proof of that. And you can just show the distinctions, like you could see it. So, so it's we were to study, but even if you wanted to get what he did, you got to study what he did. Only not because, and as I mentioned earlier, some people say, "Oh, you're just followers of the president, and he's religious, and we're not religious." That's all malarkey, because he already, as you said in the letter, you said, "I'm just doing what I was appointed to do, and ordained to do, spiritually, just to do this." So to say that is like just a way to turn people off, and then the operations that are going on that are usurping his work under his nose, under the same name but not the same organization, because there's definitely two under the MHHS-Eyes. And I'm glad you brought out that you saw the one with a mission that is totally different. But look at all that we need to know in order to get straight, because because of our lack, you know what I mean? So it bothers me. I respect his work on the subject matter itself. Like if you're going to be dealing with the subject matter of nationality, birth rights, etc., definitely need to look at his true work and not what people did afterwards, because that's always the case where, you have people wanting to, like, for some reason, wanting to start some new organization, new this, new that. But organization means to organize a nation. So whatever you're doing should be under your nation. And it's not. It's like a club, And then you've got those temples who really operate from a British perspective. They've got prime minister as their titles and stuff, and things, English titles, Like, that's, like, really crazy. And at the same time, you got people who think they're going to go in and change the mission, change and update any of his work, which is a dishonor to him because it was right and exact when it was done. And principles don't change. So if you didn't get those principles, how you going to do anything else? And you ought not do anything else until we perfect what the principles are about. So,
Indeed.
So much. It's such a montage of, it just requires study and common sense. It really does.
It does.
It does. But if I could add on, my fault. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to add on to that, I think it's a spurious argument about debating or was this a religious or national movement when it was both. Like he said that. And for the proof, if you look, when he was mentioning the statement about enforcing the Constitution, in their religion is covered. Also, he mentioned the Mohammedan religion, hoping that he said, I hope this would be satisfactory to you, when he was speaking to Moors. Also, if you just look at the 101s, there's a question, what was his nationality? And the answer is Moorish American. And then there was a separate question about what is our religion? And it was Islam. So you have both aspects right there in the 101s itself, with the national/civic and then the religion. There was a distinguishment. But I just wanted to add on to something else too, because he also made a statement or wrote down that he was trusting that the government will be prepared by more genius citizens. He didn't say more United States citizens. He didn't say more America. He said by more genius citizens. So that would inspire one to look up the word genius. And what do you have? It's a noun. It comes from Latin, genius, which means the guardian deity. So you're talking divinity right in that statement alone, all right? So genius, the guardian deity or spirit of a person, spirit, natural ability, genius from gigner, to produce, to produce. So when you're talking about the grocery stores and things of that nature, what do they call them? Produce markets and things of that nature. But then it goes into the entry-level meaning, and it says, as far as a genius, is a tutelary deity. And tutelary just means protective, a protective deity. the ruling and protecting power of men, places, or things, a good or evil spirit supposed to be attached to a person and influence his actions. In this sense, the plural is jinni, and the reference is Webster's Unabridged, published 1936, page 713. So when he's made a statement conjunctive such as a government being prepared by more genius citizens, he was letting you know that the divine and the national, again, are interrelated or intertwined like you wouldn't believe. So you have to look at this man's work in total aspect of what he was saying, because it was deeper than what your eyes see. You know what I mean? You have to go behind the writing to see what he was saying. And you don't even have to look at it that deep, but to act like he was about one and not the other is an error on anybody's part, because he was about both. He was about the national and the religious, because, again, the Constitution secures religious freedom, and he said in his message to America that without religious freedom, we will have no reason to gaze into the vast beyond and stare with fearlessness without that. That's what he said. So you can't leave any aspect of his work out as far as the influence that we were supposed to take from that, you know? So I don't know. I just think that the point of what he was doing gets lost when they try to separate, you know, it was about one and not the other. Because now you're limping. You got arms with no legs or legs with no arms. No, seriously, though. Metaphor, and I say that too because when you look at government, you're talking about a body politic, which is what? It's based off of the human anatomy, the anatomy of man. So in your anatomy, in your makeup, you got different organs that perform functions for the whole. All right, of your circulatory system. You got your heart, your veins, all of these things, your limbs, just like a tree. All right, so if you don't have any legs, then the body is incomplete, you know, and it's the same thing in government, you know, because it's based off of what? An aggregation, a body. The key word is body, politic, right? Everything is based off of nature. And when we lose that in itself is divine and national. Because, again, you got natural rights, natural birth rights, etc., in the law of nature. And the things in nature, that goes into a realm of things you can't even see with your naked eyes. You can't. And you can't even see them if you clothe them with glasses. There's the genius aspect, that guardian deity, that tutelary deity aspect, which really guides the movement in different revelations that we all had. So if people's concept of religion is simply based off of going to church on Sunday, they're already lost. Noble Ali didn't have anything to do with that. He came to take you out of that mind state. If, you know, if your perception of American is, you know, the European, the pale monster as it relates to North America, you're lost. It came to wake you up. And then you find out that what? The word Moor and the word American, Al-Moroccan, mean the same thing. And we always had genius spirituality systems with, you know, protective deities. I mean, it's even in the prayer that Allah is the guide and protector and the salvation. So that aspect in enforcing the Constitution and genius citizens, all right, the government being prepared by more genius citizens, cannot be left out about what this movement is really about. You just can't. So that's my piece on it, and I yield the floor. Islam.
All right, Islam. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some of our callers. And if you have a question, a comment, or a concern, press 1 on your telephone dial, and we will begin to take callers in the order that they appear. All righty. Caller 972-839, you're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Maxim.
Islam, family.
Islam.
Islam, no.
Once again, family, it is good to hear y'all voices and be in the house and the presence of the nobles, because what you all are saying is very right to the point and is the key and very needed to the understanding, to the overstanding, and stop being understanding, because that means you're under the authority and miseducated through the miseducation system which the Europeans have set up. In regards to nationality, we study nationality and birthright. One begins to understand the civilization laws come from nations. And if you are not part of a nation, you don't come under national or international law. Therefore, you are not recognized by nations of the earth, because law deals with the interchange between natural people across the planet. It always has been that way, for now, then, and forevermore. And nations have government principles and are universal in their character. They're not unique to us necessarily. They are universal in their character. So when you deal with other nations, there are certain fundamental principles that are universal that they expect from you when they communicate with you. And if you don't display a knowledge of them, then you are in violation of divine law, which is where government law is derived and are outside, of the law, are considered what's called an outlaw. The natural citizens and governments can do whatever they want to do and get away with it. If you are looking to belong to or become a part of a Moorish body politic, it is important for you to know that it begins with you. You must be calm, conscious that you are the body politic that you have been looking for. Once you are secure in your knowledge of nationality and national principles, then and only then can you be an active and productive part of a body politic. You must be active and not passive in these matters as they pertain to you, Moors. There are protocols to follow in protecting your right of birth. The protection of your birthright are secured in the Constitution for the United States Republic, North America. Essentially, this means you must enforce the Constitution. It also means when someone else is perpetrating a violation of it, you must defend it and hold them to that same principle. No one has authority over it in this land, as it is the supreme law of the land. It is written in the spirit of divine law, and from it comes national law. Anything to the contrary of it, it is withstanding, means has no standing. Therefore, anyone who is perpetrating against you, is not the authority over you, as they are in violation themselves. You must take responsibility and recognize your obligation, so you may act in your own best interest. Then you share this pertinent information with others. Please, this information is not for you to swallow and whole and digest, but it is for you to receive and give to others as you would have them to give to you. So you must take responsibility and recognize your obligation, so you may act in your own best interest. Please, there are no shortcuts and no shirking around them. Everyone is endowed from their Creator with certain unalienable rights, which cannot be transferred, bought, or sold, or turned into a crime, as they have been, because we are deaf, dumb, and blind. My people are destroyed not only for the lack of knowledge, but obtaining knowledge and holding it for their own selfish gain. Islam.
Islam.
Noble.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. All right.
Well,
yes. All right. We have, I think, I'm not sure, Sister Jayana, is that you? Did you want to say something again?
Yeah, I had wanted to. My phone hung up and then came back. I don't know, but I wanted to say something. Yeah, it totally hung up. I'm surprised I got back in, but I wanted to say something about earlier. Nia had mentioned Americans and how we was Americans, and they were claiming the title American, and we were just Latino. And recently, I had a conversation with an unconscious Moorish brother who was claiming that he could never be American because Americans never did nothing for him. And I told him, I said, "You're right. You haven't did anything for yourself." And so that's the whole reason. I did.
Right.
I did. I said, and that's the whole. This is our goal for us Americans to start doing something for ourselves and to know our place. And one of the things I just wanted to say is that we have a lot of people here, a lot of people out here who don't want to claim America to be Americans for some reason, but they also don't want to pay taxes and they don't want to do a lot of other things. So the one of the main points I had made was that, because he was saying, well, I don't have to pay taxes and that. I said, well, you just said you wasn't American. So if you're not American, that means you're a foreigner, and you definitely have to pay taxes. So you can't you can't try, you cannot try to I don't want to use the word what's another word? You can't try to exercise certain rights of a indigenous or Aboriginal, being over here, and then say on the other end that I'm not indigenous or Aboriginal, or I'm not of this, but, I still want to exercise those rights. It just doesn't go, you just can't do it. So it was just something I was thinking about when he was speaking on American and how they was claiming to, what is the term you used, Miss? What's by definition? It's a false claim or
what you talking about? Courtesy title?
Yeah, exactly. A courtesy title, and how they would. So that was just a great example how they were given, some of people. I'm just not gonna say him because he's not the only person but a lot of us Moors are given foreigners courtesy titles and not even recognizing it. So, I just wanted to make that statement.
And they don't want to be Americans because they've been mistaught on what American is, that's all. And right, you're right. It's that they've given the courtesy. That's a wonderful thing to acknowledge, because they think that these Mayan Europeans are the Americans. They think that this is their land. They don't understand or have knowledge that they are occupying the land, the ancestral estate. They don't. So they've been taught that. And that's why, because people go that time, oh, yeah, America, look what America has done. America ain't done jack. It's the United States of America.
That's right.
They've done a lot of stuff, Yeah.
Yep.
And the only reason they did that was because we, as the caretakers of this portion of the land, we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
Thanks for adding that, because we did it, and we lost knowledge of it over the brainwashing and indoctrination. And that's why it's so hard, because it's like people have to have an exorcism and then a baptism, quite frankly, of information. And it's so hard to get it through because they actually believe, this stuff. They believe that that's what it is until they study for themselves and find that it's not.
Yep. Right.
All right.
And I wanted to say, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I wanted to add something that was off topic, but I just wanted to share it with the family because it was an experience that I had this weekend. But so yeah, go ahead. If it's
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So this is this is the experience I had this weekend. I was at a meeting, and at the meeting, it was at a location where other events were going on, and and the event that was going on, it was called Black Agenda, and I spoke to her, and it was called Black Agenda, and so at this Black Agenda meeting, it was it was a lot of Asiatics. And, and they were, dressed in their, just the cultural way. And it was they were looking really, really great. It was just a good thing. But of course, it was called Black Agenda. So, and, of course, I was not there for that. But so I just, kind of swiftly walked through to get to where I was going in that building. And I actually had on my whole Moorish gear, because where I was going, I was, going to represent myself as a Moorish American. And so I was like, Moorish American out, turban, and I had my pin on my turban, and I had my Moorish American, gear on. It was no, like, if you saw me, I was a more American because the flag, I had everything, I was like really, truly representing. And so anyway, I get to the meeting room where I was going, and we were having the meeting. And so at the event, it was like the newscast was there, and people were taking. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So people were taking pictures and recording. The newspaper people were there, and we were at a meeting, and next thing you know, the camera people came into the room we were at that had nothing to do with Black Agenda. And so, he comes, and he's like I see him taking some pictures of certain people, and they was allowing him to take pictures of them. And then he switched the camera to me to try to take a picture. And so I had a binder. So I put the binder up, and I said, please don't take a picture of me. I'm not part of this Black Agenda program. And he was like, well, but you could still take a picture or whatever. Like, it would be really great for you to, take a picture because, this and that. I'm like, no, it will not be great for me to take this picture because I don't want to be in the newspaper and, in that picture because I'm not here for that. And he was like, well, you Black anyway. Like, he was just getting so mad at me. And he's just like, well, you Black, so you can take the picture. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not Black, so I can't take the picture. And so he was like, well, what are you then? I was like, I'm a Moor. And then he was like, well, Moor means Black, right? So I was not about to sit and argue with him because clearly I was there for something else. I said, hey, you know what? You can find your way out because you're in a private meeting right now, and so you need to get out. So he left. And so the next day, I looked on just YouTube and some stuff, and they were talking about the Black Agenda and how it turned out. And they were like a special guest. So it was a clip of a man speaking at the Black Agenda. Now, mind you, the Black Agenda had all these Asiatic people, and it was their special guest speaking, and he was speaking in this Black Agenda. And lo and behold, the special guest was a European speaking at the Black Agenda. So I think I called Annie and I said, oh my God. I said, wow, the true Black person was speaking at the Black Agenda, and all the Asiatic people were listening to him. And it was just like, it was just seriously, because it was called the Black Agenda, and the European was there. So I'm like, well, he is the Black man, so I guess he was speaking at the Black Agenda. And it was just like, wow, if their eyes are not open with that, I just don't even know what to say. And I'm just thankful that they didn't get my picture in that, because I didn't want to be a part of that.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Now the person that was on the camera, was that a brother? Unconscious brother?
It was an Asiatic brother who was just so rude. He was just so mad, and you always try to argue that more mean Black and this and that, and sometimes I break it down, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what's going on. But at that point, I really was there for something, and it was a private meeting, and we were trying to get done what we had to get done. And so, I don't have, I don't have to explain myself to somebody like that. But he was an Asiatic brother.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow, that was interesting. More means Black. that whole more means Black thing, they don't even get it. Not at all.
It doesn't mean Black, because the European was speaking at the Black Agenda. That's the Black person. So I don't. That's what he should have got.
Exactly.
It was his agenda. You know what I mean? Because that particular program didn't uplift the people in no way, shape, or form. Just from people comments and saying that there wasn't no solutions put on the table for their issues for the so-called Black people. It wasn't no solutions put on the table. And this is the thing, like that name was the perfect name to me, because it was the Black man agenda, and that's the whole reason that there was no solution for the Asiatic family at that Black agenda program.
Right. That's a nice way of putting it.
Wow. Yes, that's hilarious. All right. Well, let's see some more callers, because it's like 10 minutes to 12, so we've got like 40 minutes. Sister Jan, thank you so much for that.
Peace.
Peace. All right. Let's see. Where am I? Caller 585-410. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation in Northwest New Mexico.
Islam, this is Naeem Azrael. Wow, that's funny. I'm just laughing from that whole Black Agenda thing. That is too funny. No, there's a lot of stuff that runs through my brain. I don't know. The first thing was like how different, because there's like modern Europeans. I mean, they're being pushed out at where I work. It's like so many Asiatics there now. It's ridiculous, but or sleep anyways. But there's like an older woman that works, modern European. She's like 60, as opposed to like the younger people that are like in their 20s. It's like the older people know what's going on, because one day we were talking, she wanted to know more about, this Moorish America thing. She's very, wants to know. And one day I was telling her how a lot of modern Europeans are so into the American. They're trying to claim our stuff, as opposed to like I don't know her name, the one that was just talking, was saying that the Moor was like saying F America, America's never done, but the modern European is holding strong to it, trying to claim it. But she's the older, like the younger girl was like, well, I'm American. And blah. She wanted to debate. I just had to cut her off and didn't even want it because I was at work anyways. But the older woman, she was telling me, I don't know why people would get mad because if I had to go back to where I came from, part of me would have to go to Italy, part would have to go to Ireland. She knows that her people are not from here. But pretty much that's all I think. I think it's just like an age difference. The younger people, everybody's like, I'm American, but you're really not. And the other thing was the rosewood. And I remember back in January being on YouTube when I saw the advertisement for the show. I don't know if I said this before, but Morris Chestnut like stars in a series called Rosewood. And that's where it first clicked in my mind. Like they are trying to take events that are like past and like Ms. Ryan was saying, like reconstruct, like a whole nother kind of flipping. So if you ask the average person, like what rosewood means, rosewood, they'd probably say that TV show, blah, 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 and not even know their freaking history. Like really what's going on. Like it's a lot of different things like that's happening, but people are so, like you say, this is a time we just talk. You try to talk to people, try to show them things, whether it's the modern Europeans that don't listen or the Asiatics that don't listen. But at some point, I had to stop trying to talk to people. If they're going to, because they know by how I carry myself, how I speak, I'm turbaned up. At home, I got more flags and symbols. At work, I got flags and symbols. Stuff all over, free white person, So if people want to know, I'm at this point where they just got to see, come to me to ask, because that going out, we're just wasting a lot of time. So really, I got to get back to me, like the back to basics with Cujo and the Kingland Moore classes and how you guys are saying, because it is time I just got to get my stuff together, get my house together, try to get my daughter to get a nationality card, get it all together, because she's young, not even 19 yet. So I don't, she hears what I'm saying, but she's not really, at this point, though, I think maybe I just get her a card just to have her cover. I don't know. But anyways, we just got to get our stuff together. Anyways, but that's where I'm at. This stuff is all over the place. But thank you guys for having this show. It's helping me with public speaking, too, because I know at some point I'm going to have to speak a lot. So thank you guys.
All are.
Yes. Ain't no time to be scared. Just let it out.
That's right.
Islam, and thank you guys. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Peace and love. All right, caller 804-921. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Maxim.
Yes, this is Brother Azad Afron Bey.
Islam.
Islam. I was just laughing, and I just had to chime in what you all were talking about as far as in black. That's where they basically, I guess, if I'm looking at it from that aspect, where they say, well, they own black people. So they basically saying, well, black, if anyone's calling themselves black, and they're really Asiatics, then they're basically saying that they're owned by the real black people who are the pale people. So it was just funny. It was just funny. That's where the slaves came from. I just wanted to chime in on that. It was just funny, and I just wanted to say that and jump off.
All righty.
It's not, that's interesting what he said. He's right. And then, there's other little things like what we were reading earlier about if the people want to say they're black, no problem. Well, then, hey, we own you. Oh, and you want to say you live in, I'm a star in one of our little, corporate fictions. Oh, well, okay, no problem. So they got you coming both ways, because it's it's more than just, this is the ancestral estate, national domicile, so it's more than just knowing who you are, knowing where you are. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And that's what happens. A lot of people are saying, hey, I know I'm not black, but they haven't gotten enough of the other information yet to actually effectuate who they really are. And I guess that's why I probably said, well, study a little bit, and gave you hints here and, things to go through. But a lot of people, they'll recognize that, but then don't know enough about the rest and getting in a lot of things before time and, interesting.
The
my fault. I was just going to say another thing is it goes to show you backwards things are today on multiple scales, whereas you got the Americans thinking that they're black people, right? And in the meantime, while they're thinking that they're black people, they're giving the courtesy title to the Europeans as they claim to be American. And my thing is, why? Like, even when you look at, because we're talking about the true black people, since the word black does mean pale in fact and in deed and in law, right? You got the pale people who told you that they came over, meaning that they're not indigenous, they're not aboriginal. They had a conquest intent. So it's just so backwards that now you got Americans, the true Americans claiming to be black, and then the black people claiming to be Americans. And when we say black, we're talking about what it means in its original context. Because just like they came over colonists, that's what they are. That's who they are. Their agenda hasn't changed much since they got here, So I just wanted to add that on that. That in itself, once you really understand what the word American means and what the word black means, then you will really see how backwards things have gotten or are.
Islam. All right. And then I think this is our last caller, unless someone raises their hand or presses 1 on the telephone dial. Wait a minute. I thought that was our last caller, but I guess not. All right. Wait. All right, here, wait. Caller 443-376. You are live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest New Mexico.
Islam. I am Hassan Kazio Bay at Northwest New Mexico. How's my family?
Islam.
I'm all as well.
Islam. I'm just going to be very brief. Recently, I was watching the
Brother,
Moor.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Is this a little better?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. Recently, I was watching the Moorish economic astrology video with both you, Mother Roz, and Brother Taj, and it inspired me to go further into looking at the correlation between the double helix of civics and cosmology, and I kind of dug into what is termed now as Vedic astrology, but sidereal-based astrology, and I just kind of wanted to just ask briefly, what have you researched or come across in that system of astrology, Mother Rosmariah?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. Which system of astrology are you talking about?
The sidereal-based one that they're terming Vedic astrology.
Well, it's like, look at the word. It's like sidereal, right? Or sidereal, as they call it. There's different. There's movement at all times. There's different. There's aspects that are created like infinitum. You know what I'm saying? And so, like some people, there's all types of astrology or all of it, no matter what you call it, it's all about the geography or the astronomy, which is the locations of planets and heavenly bodies, planetary bodies, and their relationship from lineal to just in depth. It goes on in dimensions, and there's things like, for instance, even with whatever your chart is, and someone may read it, there's all types of other influences of energy, be it a heavier influence or a more direct influence, or far away, and so when we look at the astrology band that we're in, or within this, we have to look, for me anyway, I think that if we have the understanding of that basic fundamental map, then we can go on to understand and receive all the other types of readings. Like, for instance, like a lot of people, they know that the degrees are off, it's 70 degrees off here, or different types of readings. There's so many types of that you can really look at. You understand what I'm saying? So it's infinite. I deal with the psychology of the astrology more so in the effects that these energies make. But then again, it's infinite. There's all types of effects. Like, there could be comets and all kinds of stuff that's going on that actually has some sort of effect as it emits that energy all the way really down to this planet. I mean, that's how I look at it. But what did you get out of it?
Well, when studying, I'll be brief. When studying, I enjoy the fact in reading CMB and observing some of the videos where you give a lot of keys. I think a lot of people miss them, but I really pick up on them. So in doing my tropical astrological chart and quote unquote Vedic astrological chart, I just look at Vedic is, since it's quote-unquote Indian-based or Hindustan, Paro-based, that's more of going back into studying our ancient foremothers and forefathers. So I guess I kind of look at the so-called Vedic astrology as more matrilineal, and kind of look at the tropical astrology as more patrilineal, so to speak. So that's kind of what I get out of it, but I use both. I don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, See, and like when I was doing the study, like what you're saying is, okay, but that's more Indian-based. And I'm like, no, not really. Because, this is just because, like, when I was doing my initial studies on it, it's like, for instance, give an example, like some people would look at Chinese astrology, like you said, I've already said this before, Chinese astrology, and they say, oh, my gosh, they've got 36 signs. No, not really. It's the 12 band and then the 2 on each constellations for each sign, which comes out to 36. Then you'll have some that says the Hindustan is more dealing with the moon cycles. I mean, more as a different type of astrology. My point is that they'll say it is a different type of reading, or a different type. It really isn't. It's just dealing with the moon. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
There was a time when you would have the sun, the moon, Venus, all of it. They had like dials that dealt with all of those movements, really with all of the movements of the planet. So it's really not that. It's just what they're studying. No, then there was another one, and then you go to history and you find the so-called Greek, right? Well, they were right. We're talking about not the ancient Greeks, because that would, we would have been, we brought in and taught them everything. But when they call themselves, discovering astrology, they didn't even discover Pluto until 1832 or something like that. Well, does that mean that Pluto wasn't there? Of course it was. But on the cycles and what they knew, they didn't study it. So as an example, the Greeks thought that Venus, they named it oh gosh, I forgot now. Sometimes you forget all that you know. They had two names. One was Venus, and the other one was oh gosh, it slips my mind now. But the truth was is that it was the same planet, because it rises in the morning and in the evening. But they didn't know that. You understand what I'm saying? So they'll call it a certain type of astrology. Look, it is what it is. They're the planetary bodies, and they all have their own cycle and movement, regardless of what someone would call it in that respect. So you have to look at it all. And then some people, look, there's astrology where you can start whatever your day of birth is, if you know what that is, your day of birth. You can put that in the first house and start like that, and then they'll call that a different type of reading. You can do a reading where you can look at your own chart and put your parents, read your parents' chart from your chart.
Like in a synastry kind of form?
Say that again.
Is that what you're saying? You're saying like in a synastry kind of form?
Yeah, there's all types of readings that you can do with the energies, and they never fail because of the cycle that they're on. This is what they create in their energy. So, learn them all. And also, more importantly, learn, I think, in understanding who we are and who others are, is to understand the blending of the energies from all of those aspects or positions, to understand humanity itself and the things that other people may or may not do. But you should know that about yourself first, and then others. You can study forever. That's why the prophet, it comes to me, and I think it kind of comes to me even more now with this conversation. He says, look, if you think you studied and studied well, and you ask me what to study next, I would tell you to study yourself. Now, in order to do that, you got to go to astrology. You have to. You have no other choice.
Indeed.
If I could add on too, as you just said, when you mentioned the prophet says study, 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 and then study yourself, he also left that jewel of so-called Vedic astrology in the 101s. Because really, it's just Asiatic math, in observations. So when he was talking about, a holy day is Friday, and a holy day is Friday for Muslims all over the planet, because, Friday is the 6th day, and then you take that and correlate that with the days and nights of Brahm, all right, and then you correlate that with the fact that he said we honor all true and divine prophets, including Brahma. You see that's Moorish culture. And sidereal time is, the concept of time is basically abstract. But C&B was going into that too. You went into that too as well, man, when and made sure that the literature was available as well, with the clocks of destiny, light of Egypt, things of that nature. Whereas in there, basically what you have your 24-hour day based on is, quote-unquote, sidereal time or sidereal time. Because when C&B was going into the Earth's diurnal motion, and every day, in 1 hour it causes 15 degrees of the zodiac to rise, to set, and to culminate. Mm-hmm. And you take the 15 degrees times 24, you got 360. Mm-hmm. So when you look at a 360-degree clock or circular clock, and it has to make 2 revolutions to complete, quote-unquote, a 24-hour day, you're dealing with the math of 360 or 720, etc., however you want to look at it. But all of those concepts of degrees are basically, they are rooted in matrilineal culture, all of them.
All of them, right. Exactly.
Yeah. So when they say Vedic astrology, that did not just apply to the Hindustanis, because they were Moors. So the biggest discredit we could say is saying that was just specifically Indians, when the so-called Indians or the Hindustanis was Moors. So that's Asiatic culture. the planet. And it goes to show how open-minded they were, and they was dealing with the science of the number 9, super heavy. So for sure, and I just want to say, for those listening who may not know or may have missed this, go back into the November episode of Sons of Allah, Part 1 and Part 2, on the science of the number 9. You see, we left a lot of jewels, mental jewels on that, as far as those types of astrologies as they relate to the number 9, and how that comes down to how it reflects on the planet with 9 months in the womb, etc. So for sure, just to add on, that's on record. Islam.
Well, I appreciate the family. Thank you so much. I know my Google Voice time going to run out in like 2 minutes, so that's why I'm going to get off right now. But I love you, family. Thank you so much for your energy. Peace and love, Islam.
All right.
All right, Islam. All righty. And I believe that is our last caller. Yes, I believe that's our last caller. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's our last caller. Well, let me check one person. Caller 585410. Did we take your call?
Oh, I'm sorry. When it did muted, I thought I was done. I didn't drop out. Sorry.
All righty. Thank you so much. All righty. Well, that concludes this broadcast. We shall see you tomorrow for Part 2 of the final call at the National Theater. Class starts at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6. And we will be running.
No, got to keep it at 7:30 for the reasons at New York. You got to keep it at 7:30.
All right.
You want it to be that.
All righty.
And as well, MHHS Sons of Allah is Thursday at 9 o'clock p.m.
Yes, that's right.
Standard Time.
Sons of Allah this Thursday at 9 p.m. And I believe we have Sister Standing on Law this Sunday as well at 1 p.m. So this is another full schedule week. Put your skates on and keep up. Peace and love, everyone.
All right. That's all.
Peace and love.
King Moor. Our problem is lack of knowledge and the intended deceit and trickery done, because even those who read the biblioteca that you call the Bible says he shall fool even the most believe. So even those who think they're highly educated and this and that, they've been fooled. That's it. It's not really complicated.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. The gods are back, the Moors are strapped. We waking up, and we want our land back. Running off, that's a trap. You know them gods don't like that. Waking up from a nap, like where the hell my crown at? Take a step back, like I know this bitch ain't bite back. It's kinda crazy how this karma it strikes back. We enslaved the Slavs, so they slaved us right back. We called them niggas, then they niggered us right back. We brought them to light, but they ain't bring that right back. If I was lazy, dirty dancing with the baby, then maybe, then just maybe won't revolt like Haiti. I too smart, Lova, Tor, Marcus, Garvey, your ass. Nova, Julia, R. leading, God body the man. Now I ain't gotta be bad, and you ain't gotta be mad, but the planet is heating up, so the first I'll be last. I got that melanin that's better than anything you ever medicine. We at your front door, wonder why you never let us in. Oh, I get it, you never wanted to put some credits in. Well, just forget it, cause I don't know if you can edit sin. We've been enlightened long before Thomas Edison. Skeletons to prove that you wasn't even relevant. In the Caucasus Mountains, cause the sun was your deficit. Captain Caveman with the plan of the Jesuits. Check my bloodline, but in time I bring the evidence. Self-governing body, so I don't need no president. Democrat, Republican, donkey versus elephant. I studied in law, so I ain't down with none of that. I self-law in master, so I'm running that. This Molotov counter burns faster, so I like the match. Despite the fact that ain't even what I'm mad at. I spit the truth, so here's the roof, so you can yeah that. My skin is brown and here's the proof, but you ain't hearing that. Dead in the eyes of the law, that's why they call you black. Naming all caps when you fall, that's why I strike back. And strike that from the record ab initio. You gon' need more than some pressure, I got a vicious flow. I can take the road to the high, or I can hit them low. Try to calcify my third eye, oh you gon' have to go. Chemtrails all over the sky, and you don't wanna know. Doggone inside of my tribe, they coming no more.
If you believe that your history started on a slave boat, I can guarantee you that's where it ended too. That's what I'm saying. Then, after saying that, and so don't believe me, go back and do some studies past the 1700s, and I'll guarantee you, sure as you're sitting there listening, or wherever you are, watching, listening, you will find nothing but the word Moor. And that's another thing. Because we weren't called black. That description, maybe, black or more or whatever, but that's it. Know the difference between a description and an actual, person, place, or thing, noun. I mean, really.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. From the pyramids to the project, the beginning is the part they want you to forget. Implant your memory with that noose around your neck. It's the king out for planning, it's set in full effect. The butler, the help, and 12 years a slave. Django and Selma, they get them accolades. They made a movie called Exodus about the gods and kings with an all-white cast from Egypt. Now that's the same. They ain't never seen no movie about no European slaves. We were traveling the seas when they was living in caves. We had to civilize them, show them how to behave. In fact, we brought them light and taught them how to bathe. This is trading places with stolen identity. We agreed to be educated by our own enemy. Reverse psychology, I'ma need a lobotomy. An exorcism just to get this shit about me. Roz Mariah, Anna E, Miss Raheem, Tariq, Cujo from Cannonland. Listen to them speak. How to learn from the best. I don't need no DNA test. The nations in my womb has given from the breast. The empire's back, so you know what's next. The Moors are waking up, now you must confess. Yes, yes. The Moors are waking up, now you must confess.
Birthright theft. The whole deal was, where's my land that, for them, the whole deal was like, this is really quote-unquote promised land. This is really the quote-unquote heart of civilization. This is really what you might call Northwest Africa. That's what, and I say that to people so they can stop saying I'm going back to Africa and understand that they're in it. It's the Garden of Eden.
That's what they had in Columbus's journal that they arrived
in
Eden.
So what has happened is absolute lies. That's right. And the land of milk and honey is another terminology. So these things are important because as you're doing studies, and if it says the land of milk and honey, you need to know they're talking about the North American continent. If you don't know that, then you miss it. And that's part of our problem. That part of our problem is the miseducation. We have been lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to, lied to.
Good morning. Welcome to Burger King.
I'm looking at this enormous burrito, and man, it's big, I tell you that. Dang. Give me one of them enormouses. Enormouses. Watch out. Let's do it now.
Okay, I think I know what you're ordering.
Get the new Eggnormous Burrito now only at Burger King. A hearty